Hello, I'm Dr. Tanya Kafer, and welcome to the fifth installment of a series of videos in which I go through the research process as I'm conducting a study. It has been a while, folks, so unfortunately because of various issues came up, so health issues, teaching, other research projects that I'm working on. Unfortunately, this project got pushed to the back burner, and it is now May 1st, and I'm just catching up now in terms of what we want to do for the study. So the only thing you actually really miss in that time is the REB process. REB stands for Research Ethics Board, and anytime you as a student or me as a faculty member wants to do a study with human participants, you have to get clearance from the university's Research Ethics Board. So I'll show you a little bit about the process of how we do that, how we get a research ethics approval. And it takes a long time. It's a very involved process. So that's really what I've been doing this entire time.
Here's the online form you fill out and submit. This one, of course, has already been submitted, so there's no submit option here. But you can see that you have to explain the entire study, including how you're going to recruit participants, how you're going to collect the data, how you're going to get informed consent from them, how you'll store the data, who will have access to the data, things like that, how you'll present the data in the end, whether there's any deception, whether there's any harm, what are the benefits to society, things like that. So as you can see, there's a lot to fill out here. This is all already filled out. This was done, a little while ago. So basically you need to have everything ready for the study before you get to this point. And then they may still request changes. But for now, you just put everything you have, everything you've planned into here. Let's look a little bit closer at one of these, arguably the most important one, informed consent. Whoopsie daisies. Okay. Any study you do, participants have to give informed consent. That means that they know what they're agreeing to and they agree freely to participate. They're not coerced or lied to in any way, with the small exception of some studies that require deception, but that's pretty rare in education, so we're just going to ignore that for now. What is common in education, though, is this guy down here, which is that oftentimes students who are under 18 do not have the capacity to consent. In this particular case, where the students are 4 and 5 years old, they really probably don't have the capacity to consent. So they're not capable of giving full informed consent. So that means we have to get consent from their legal guardians, usually parents, and then we would get assent from the students themselves. Now, helpfully, the REB has included a checklist of things that need to be provided for informed consent. So typically what you do is you'd write a letter that gives them all that information like this. So we give it to parents, so that's why it says dear parent or guardian, and then they would read this, sign the consent form that's on the next page, and then they would return that consent form to us and keep the information form. The consent form, although as you can see, it includes some information on it, it doesn't include any new information. Everything that's on the consent form is also in the information letter. So parents keep the information letter and then they send back the consent form.
So then when it's time to do the study, whether that's the next minute or the next week, you have to get assent from the students. So how you do that varies a lot. With older children, a lot of people will get written assent, in which they have a little form that the students would sign. For my students, because they're under the age of 7, we do verbal assent because they can't read. So I usually just say something like, would you like to read a story with me in the next room? And if they say yes, then they participate. And if they say no, then they don't. Also, of course, if they say at any time that they want to leave, they can leave. I don't, hold kids captive.
Okay, so with all those major bases covered, what we do is we'd hit the submit button. Now, there is no submit button here because this was submitted a while ago, but you can see here's where it would be. And that's it. You have requested REB approval. Now, here at LU, we actually have 3 layers of approval we have to get through. First, it goes to someone in the education faculty, and they look for any big red flags or missing information or stuff like that. And then it goes through a staff member at the REB, and they do basically the same thing. And then finally, it goes through the REB board members, who are the faculty from around campus and community members who get together once a month and meet about any projects that are going on and decide whether those projects are ethical. Then finally, once all your changes are made and everything is on the up and up, you can go ahead with your study.
So for this REB, I submitted it on February 16th and I got approval on March 23rd. So it does take a good chunk of time to get that approval. Now within that time, of course, it went back and forth as I had to make changes. Now, once you get that REB approval, you have to run the study exactly as you outlined it to the REB. You have to use that exact consent form. You have to use those exact materials. You cannot change anything that comes in contact with the participants at all during the tenure of the study. If you do want to change it, you have to submit a modification, which is basically another REB process. It's a little shorter because you just submit the same thing saying, oh, this thing's already approved. I just, want to add this test or want to take away this test or whatever. So hopefully we won't have to do that. Hopefully everything will be smooth sailing from here on out. So the next step is going to be recruiting participants, which I have also already done. So you will get a video on that very shortly. Thanks. Bye.